In a time of kings and castles, a young candlemaker discovered a hidden mindset so powerful that it lifted him out of poverty, gave him unshakable calm, healed broken relationships, and turned him into a leader others trusted with their lives. This is the story of Malachi and how his secret can change your life today. Before the story begins, drop one sentence in the comments. What is one thing anxiety has stolen from you? In a simple village nestled among gentle hills, there lived a young man named Malachi. He was an apprentice to the old candlemaker, spending his days dipping wicks into golden wax. Though his hands shaped light, his mind lived in endless shadow. Anxiety owned him. Every morning he woke with a tight chest. His thoughts raced like wild horses. Will I ever earn enough coin? What if I fail my master? Do people laugh at my patched tunic? His mind was a storm of what-ifs, each one a crashing wave against the shore of his peace. The landlord, a stern man named Gregor, banged on his door demanding rent. Malachi would hide until the knocking stopped, his face burning with shame. Once, his only pair of boots split open in the mud, and he walked barefoot for days, too afraid to ask for help. Hunger for security gnawed at him, but fear kept him frozen. At village gatherings, when elders asked for ideas to improve trade, Malachi's throat tightened. Words dissolved on his tongue. He convinced himself his thoughts were foolish, so he stayed silent, a ghost among neighbors. One harvest season, a cart of grain overturned on the main path. While others rushed to clear it, Malachi hung back, paralyzed by the thought of giving wrong directions. The chaos needed a calm voice, but he had none. He pushed away Lena, the weaver's daughter, who once laughed with him by the stream. Whenever she drew close, his mind whispered, "She will leave when she sees how broken you are." So he stopped meeting her eyes. Soon she stopped waiting. Even his own brother, Corin, had left the village after a bitter argument years ago. Malachi replayed that fight every night, drowning in guilt he could never undo. Daily life became a battle. Rain on market day, a burnt batch of candles, a stern glance from a stranger. Anything could throw him into hours of dread. He was exhausted, living inside a mind that never let him rest. One evening, after a particularly hard day, Malachi sat alone by the old stone well outside the village. The sky bruised into violet. He stared at the water bucket, wishing he could drown his thoughts. A cracked voice startled him. "Heavy load you carry, young man." An elderly wanderer with a walking stick and kind eyes lowered himself onto the well's edge. He wore a dusty cloak, and his name was simply Eldrin. He looked at Malachi as if he could see the war inside him. "I carry nothing," Malachi muttered. Eldrin smiled. "Yet your shoulders are rounded and your breath is shallow. You carry a cage." "A cage?" Malachi blinked. "Anxiety," Eldrin said softly, "is a cage you build with the bars of your own thoughts. The key has always been in your hand. You just forgot to turn it." That sentence pierced Malachi's heart. He felt the truth of it, raw and painful. Eldrin scooped water from the well with a cupped hand. "Watch. If I squeeze my fist to keep the water, it runs out. But if I open my hand..." He relaxed his fingers, and the water pooled gently in his palm. Control is an illusion. Peace comes when you release the need to control what you cannot. Accept the moment, act on what you can, and let go of the rest. That night, Malachi could not sleep. Eldrin's words circled him like a tender flame. For the first time, hope flickered inside his chest. He decided to try this open-hand mindset with the smallest things. The very next day, Gregor came for the overdue rent. Malachi's old panic ignited, chest pounding, mind racing, but he remembered the open hand. He breathed deeply, opened his fist, and walked to meet Gregor at the door. "I don't have the silver today," Malachi admitted calmly, his voice steadier than ever before. "But I can offer you 40 candles for your inn each month until the debt is settled. If that is acceptable, I will honor it without fail." Gregor stared, taken aback by the quiet poise of the boy. "Agreed," he said at last. For the first time, poverty's grip loosened. A small action, taken with surrender, had opened a door. Weeks later, the spring festival arrived. The village needed someone to lead the candlelit evening ceremony, a role that required speaking before hundreds. Malachi's old self would have vanished into the shadows. This time, he stepped forward, heart hammering. He told himself, "I cannot control their judgment. I can only speak from my heart." He accepted the racing pulse, the trembling hands, and let them be. That night, standing before the crowd, he shared a simple poem about light piercing darkness. When applause erupted, tears filled his eyes, not from pride, but from the discovery that he could feel fear and still move forward. Not long after, violent storms swelled the river, threatening to flood the crop fields. Villagers scrambled in panic. Malachi heard the chaos, felt the familiar urge to hide, and then made a choice. He climbed onto a hay cart and called out clear instructions. "I need 10 strong arms to dig a trench by the mill. 15 others bring sacks of sand. We can redirect the water before the field is lost." Calm and steadiness spread through his voice like dawn. People listened. Together they saved the harvest, and that day Malachi became the man others looked to in a crisis. Once the fields were safe, an old wound called to him. Malachi saddled a mule and rode 3 towns over to find his brother Corin. He had rehearsed 1,000 speeches in his mind, but when he saw Corin chopping wood outside a small cottage, all the words fled. Instead, he simply spoke the truth. "I'm sorry for the harsh words all those years ago. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I love you." He let go of the outcome like water from his palm. Corin dropped his axe, and after a long silence, his face crumpled. They embraced, and years of bitterness washed away in a few quiet sobs. Life continued to test his new way of thinking. Not long after, Malachi's tiny workshop caught fire from a tipped lantern. Flames devoured half his stock and tools. Old Malachi would have collapsed in despair, cursing fate. New Malachi stood in the ash, mourning the loss, and then whispered, "I cannot control the fire. I can only rebuild." He gathered friends who had once only known his distant shadow, and together they cleared the debris and crafted a better shop. He learned that a candle does not fight the darkness. It simply shines, trusting its light is enough. For anxiety blooms in a clenched fist, but wilts in an open hand. One market day, a traveling merchant suffered a sudden fit of panic in the square, trembling and gasping. Malachi knelt beside him, gently opened the man's clenched fist, and taught him the open hand breathing. The merchant's eyes cleared. Word of the candlemaker's strange wisdom began to ripple far beyond the village. Even the king heard. King Aldrich, a ruler gnawed by endless worry over border wars, summoned Malachi to the castle. Standing in a hall of polished stone and silk banners, Malachi felt small, but not afraid. The king demanded, "How does a candlemaker possess such peace?" Malachi said, "Your Majesty, I cannot control kingdoms or battles, neither can I control the thoughts that arrive, but I can choose which thoughts I hold on to and which I let pass like clouds. Anxiety is an unwelcome guest. I stopped offering it a chair." The king was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed, a surprised, weary laugh, and granted Malachi's village a year without taxes. More importantly, the king began to practice the open hand himself, and the palace slowly breathed easier. Months turned to years. Malachi trained young apprentices to make candles, but he also taught them the inner art of surrender. The village, once a place of huddled strangers, became a community of calm hearts. The mindset did not erase hardship. Storms still came, crops sometimes failed, people still passed away. But those who walked with Malachi discovered that fear lost its power when they stopped clinging to control. One evening, as he lit the candles in the new village gathering hall, Malachi caught his reflection in a polished piece of brass. He almost did not recognize the man looking back, shoulders straight, eyes kind, lips holding a gentle smile. The cage was gone, the key had been turned, and the anxious candlemaker had become the steady light for all who lived in the shadow of worry.